just gonna see if I can.
Hi, Björk.
Hi.
So we're here with Dazed, and we are going to be answering some fan questions with you today in celebration of Vulnicura VR.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you.
So are you cool to get started?
Yep.
Amazing. So let's start with the first one. We've got one here from Emma Hope All, who wants to know, what is your most treasured item of clothing?
It's been quite a lot. Maybe my mountain boots, because they actually ended up being a really long time. And when you choose new ones, the old one after really long time. You actually spend a long time trying them on and picking the right one. Because gonna have them for really long.
What do they look like?
I kind of like those really old school ones. As much as I like all things techno, I like my to be old school.
Cool. So we have another question from Taylor_WD, who wants to know, when are you at your most content?
Probably out in nature, like hiking with friends, light a bonfire, and cook. I'm kind of getting into cooking straight on fire pits now.
And what? And we've got another question from Charlene_D, who wants to know, what are your favorite films?
Favorite what?
Your favorite films?
I like the trilogy of Antonioni, Eclipse, and Adventura. I like The Hourglass in the Sanatorium very much. I like the Sweet, it's a Yugoslavian film.
We're getting a lot of we're getting a lot of messages about the audio. So let's see if we can get that fixed. Just one moment. Can you hear me okay, Björk?
Yep.
Okay. I wonder, is that better for everyone else? The echo is bad on her side. Do you have a set of headphones?
No.
No.
I can hear you.
I'm going to work at getting some headphones. I think the audio maybe on our side is a bit difficult to hear, but we'll continue anyway for now, and we'll see about getting that fixed. So I think it would be good if we could talk a little bit about the launch of the VR app, which is today. So maybe you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah. I think I'm just really excited about the fact that we can actually release this, because when we started this, I mean, it's like almost 4 or 5 years ago, there was really no way of telling like how we could share it. I think I'm like I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe it's coming from Iceland. I'm just we don't really have class systems here, and we have like, my dad was a union leader. So I really like this kind of, the fact that you can share stuff. So that was actually the sort of biggest challenge through this whole thing, was trying to figure out how we could, that this wasn't too esoteric, that this was something we could share. So we went to, we started this as filming with a 360 camera on a beach, and really trying to celebrate the angle of VR, which is most spontaneous, low budget, like immediate. And me trying to get back to this place where I actually wrote the song on the beach that I sang it on. So to sort of use technology as to simplify and make more intimate the contact with the listeners. Then we kind of first did like put some headsets up in rough trade record shops, and all these people came and tried it out, and that worked out really well. So we were like, what could we do next? And then I got offered to do an exhibition in Sydney, Australia, in June, I think 2016. So we moved everything. Then we had to like added a couple of songs. So everything was like very baby stepping, just seeing how everything would change in the climate and what formats, and was it going to be shared by, you know, very expensive headsets, or was it going to be like on the phones? Or at one point there were like cardboard glasses that people could fold. A project we did with New York Times, and it basically, it's gone through these 5 years, it's gone through every step. And then in Sydney we added a couple of songs, and we had like 3 different rooms for 3 different songs with, I think it was 10 headsets per song, and literally tens of thousands of people came, and we were so surprised, and people were really like crying, very emotionally, very like moved by it. So I think that's what made us believe, okay, we're going around the right road. And then we kind of saw, okay, I was like so excited about the 360 sound that I would make everything like move in circles in the headphones, like the strings and the voice, and then that was just making people really like seasick. So I like learned the hard way, also with the visuals, because they were making some people feeling a bit nauseous. So I think then I made the sound more like everything stayed in the same place except one thing, different different thing for each song, would move and do very intentional movements. And then we moved to Tokyo, where that was our third city, and we would where we did a collaboration with Mirakam, the Museum of Technology, and we had already worked with them really well with biophilia, where they did educational courses for kids with us. So they were amazing, and we ended up, they wanted to really do things that never been done before. So we ended up like doing live streaming with augmented reality, and with adding on top of the first 360 live performance in front of an audience. So, and I had like a 3D printed mask by Iris, sorry, I'm mixing the names up here, Neri Oxman, and that was like captured. So that was really exciting. I'm quite pumped because I sang live. And then we learned from that, okay, what can go better? And then we moved to the next thing. And I think the next place was Montreal. I could get it wrong, but we've been to 17 cities now. And we've always learned, added one song every other city or so, and adapted the VR to how the people reacted. And then we were really, really excited when finally in late 2019, and it's looking like before Christmas, we can release it on a PlayStation.
Amazing.
And so it can be accessible for people who have PlayStation. So yeah, so it's been that was something we didn't even know if that would happen eventually. So I'm very excited to do that.
And has accessibility always been an important marker whenever you're thinking about virtual reality and what it can do to elevate your music?
Maybe not literally accessibility, but more the fact that every format has its limitations. I think a vinyl has its limitation. You know, in the 60s there was like 45 minutes, and then you have to walk to the record player, turn the record around, and it's another 45 minutes. And I think first that was really limiting to musicians, but then they made that into a good thing. And we had 70s, the era of the concept album, when everybody just took it into something with more weight or emotional weight. And I think CDs they got the limitations. Like every format has its limitation. I think it's more about picking the right content for the right format, if you want. So I think also I was strangely enough inspired by the bank crash in Iceland, because then I took like half a year off and was just working on environmental issues in Iceland, and then trying to convince people not to make aluminum smelters. And then the whole country went bankrupt. So we were trying to encourage seed companies in the rural areas to do creative green things without any money, with no budget. So it's like you don't need money to go green, kind of thing. And I think that sort of inspired everything I've done the last 10 years, that it's everything is very sort of in exchange and not trying to work against nature or technology, to be inclusive to technology. It is here to stay. We're not all going to move into caves, let's face it, but let's go green, and let's use all the ideas we get and all the music we get and everything we get, and try to harness it in technology we can share with the least effort. But maybe sometimes when you are making things, or you are first developing things and trying to figure out what the character of each thing is, that of course is a lot of work. And I have to say, this VR album probably has most man hours or woman hours of anything I've done. It's literally millions of Skype meetings, and each song went through like 20 demos, and there was basically 7 different companies doing 7 different songs somewhere in basements and bedrooms. And and that later became better companies. And then we had to, at some stage, translate all the 7 different programs and put it all under umbrella with the company Analog in London, who did that, and all into one umbrella. And then that was a lot of work. And then make sure that it all worked on the same platform. And then through this process, through every single, listen to all the music and mix everything again, the sound, and master it again, and invent mastering programs for 360 music. And there's basically been like 20 things, like hurdles we got hit that we had to sort of overcome. And I tried to include every single one, and try to say, okay, here's a hurdle, let's switch it into an advantage for the music. Oh, maybe we can use this as a good idea to make the music sound even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a wonderful way to approach it. And a couple of different people want to know how you chose the different collaborators on this project and how you worked with the multitude of directors that you did.
Yeah, I mean, I think in that way it's a natural continuity of the music video. That's like a tradition that's already established that I really love. And so I think with the app album, Biophilia, I already, me and James Murray already tried once where I programmed for Max all the musical structures, the algorithms for the songs. And then we reached out to app builders to add the visuals on the skeletons we already had. And then some of them we were lucky and that went through like 2 or 3 demos and then we were ready. But some of them are literally like 20 demos until it was like right. And so we already did that. So in some ways doing a VR album was that, but times 10, but the amount of work it was, but kind of same kind of idea. I think also some gut instinct in me. It's also very much about, like, my albums for me are very, very different. For some people, they all kind of sound the same, but for me, they're very, very different. And for me, I think I could have only done this with Vulnikura, because Vulnikura for me is the most kind of old school musically of everything I've done. It's like Heartbreak, which is the oldest format, maybe what the music industry has always wanted me to do is just be this kind of like Edith Piaf or this kind of crooner and also this kind of cliche of what women, the role they are put into of being this kind of burn, and then you like self-destruct in the end and you're not a threat. So I've kind of stayed away from that as much as I can through my whole life, because I thought it was so one-sided. And but then in Vulnikura, I actually ended up writing an album like that, where I actually am the victim, and that's very much the victim archetype, if you want. And I was like, okay, I wrote the strings in a really old school way. It's almost like a Greek tragedy. So I had an album that was really, and it was the only album I had which had the chronology. I wrote the first song before the heartbreak, and then during the heartbreak, and then other songs after the heartbreaks. And then I actually had the album is in the same chronology. So I actually had my only album that actually had a narrative like that. So I thought, okay, I actually have something that has like a narrative and has meat and bones. So I can actually attach to it something as esoteric as a VR content that still hasn't even been made, because I felt confident with this. I already had a emotional structure that sort of made sense to me. And I understand it better. It's actually interesting that I'm releasing this now after I've done Utopia and then Cornucopia, which is the live version of Utopia. Because for me, Utopia is very esoteric music. It has no but it's just a lot of flutes and synths and very like a kite in the sky. But the theatrical presentation we're doing is the opposite. It's giving it body. So we have like 14 screens and 7-meter long organ pipes and a reverb chamber on stage and a 50-piece chorus. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but from my point of view, Utopia is, the music is very like air, element air. And the execution of the live show is very live flesh. And Woollywood is the opposite, where the music is very live and flesh and very earthy, but the visual execution, the VR, is the opposite. That's very air. So, does that make sense? And I think that's why Woollywood could kind of take it and was like a natural fit to VR.
We've got Hi, we're back.
Hi.
Sorry about technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's okay.
So let's get back into the questions.
Right.
So I wonder if you could tell us what your most profound experience is experiencing Vulnicura VR. Which video is it that speaks to you most emotionally whenever you go through it?
Well, I think for me, maybe by design, family is that song, because I think there are songs on Vulnicura, like for example, Black Lake or Lion Song, where it's a lot of work or craft. Most of it lies in the string arrangements and it's and the melody. So the music kind of carries the structure, if you want. So I wanted the visuals to that to be more like a film that accompanies that. But with family, it was almost the other way around, where the music was more atmospheric and music was more almost like a soundtrack or an ambient song, to the sort of story that happens through the whole album. The lyric is literally just describing what physically my sensations were during the whole process of the heartbreak. And I think I was trying to tap into something universal there, because I feel as long as mankind has existed, they've spoken about heartbreaks and they put their hand on their hearts and, oh, my heart broke, which obviously doesn't make any sense. And I think people who go through loss, for example, death of a close one, they go through this kind of mourning, which is basically, it feels like their arm just got torn out of the socket, but then they point it out to their friend, and their friend can't see anything, you know. But for them, it's reality. Like, that's the amount of pain they felt. So I kind of, I witnessed very early on, when I was trying on a lot of VR of other people's, that they had that sort of potential of, you know, of making those kind of invisible things, that emotional things that we feel with our bodies, but it's not literally, they don't happen, which basically in short is called metaphysical. That the VR has a very easy access to that part of us. So for me, basically the way I experienced my heartbreak was that I had a big wound in my chest, and then I was sewing that, and then I kind of did this kind of back bend, almost like a yoga pose called the bridge, and then all the blood in my veins wasn't blood, but it was black lead, because of all the sorrow, and that kind of hardened into this kind of sculpture, which was me doing a back bend. And then once I'd healed, I would sew my wound, and then I would like rise up and get rid of all the earthly luggage and the pain, and just for a moment be this kind of just air, or this light being that had kind of overcome this somehow. And well, only for a minute, until the next morning. Not just kidding, but it's just, but I feel like this is the sort of transformation people go through normally in sorrow or on serious mourning. So family, lyrically, is basically just describing this. So it's literally, and this is something I did with Auntie Thomas Hwang, and we spoke about it in great detail for 2 years before we did this, and it was good because, like I told you, in each city we would learn more about how the audience reacted and what was effective and what didn't work at all, and then we did family, and it literally starts with me in an Icelandic cave in the underworld, and we kind of made it part of the gadget that you hold in VR, that you are like sewing your wound with that. So that's part of the listener can do that. And then in the middle of the song, there's this cello solo, which is almost like an arpeggio, where you drill a hole from the underworld up to the surface, and there you become this kind of coagulated black sculpture, and then you kind of sew your wound, and then you kind of stand up and rise and become this kind of 3-meter tall light being that walks like through you. And that's something we noticed that people really reacted to at all these VR exhibitions. I mean, we've gone now to 17 cities, that if they saw like an avatar from afar, and then the avatar kind of became them, and then there was some sort of transformation in the music, or they did something with their hands, something really simple and symbolic, and then you grow into this kind of 3-meter tall light being, as a sort of reward for your self-work, that seemed to work really well in the VR world for some reason. And I think it's basically, for me, it was very obvious that it was tapping into mythologies from all over the world. There's such stories of giants and trolls, and I mean, we even see it in Princess Mononoke of Studio Ghibli, and it's been with us. And I think it's just this psychological transformation that the humans have capacity to do, and only for a moment we become some sort of saintly beings, but then we go back into the soil and have to start all over again.
We've got a couple of questions also about your face filter. Can you tell us a bit about your mask?
Oh, James Murray made it. He's been very courageous during our Mexico City residency, which we just came from. And he kind of programmed and was noodling with this in his room. And yeah, we decided to premiere it today to see how it would work.
It is a look.
And,
it is brilliant.
Yeah, it's based on the same idea as Utopia, which is and Cornucopia, which is the skeletal orchid, which
beautiful.
is the sort of theme.
Lovely. And so we've got a couple of more general questions also. Joseph Benjamin 13 wants to know, would you ever consider acting again?
I don't know. I'm flattered that I actually kind of still get asked. It is very flattering. It is, you know, I'm so obsessed with what I do, and I think I'm so lucky because in what I do, it's got music and it's got visuals, and I collaborate with so many people. I mean, altogether, I haven't counted, but I bet on this VR album there's like 100 people all together with all the programmers and everybody and the engineers. I wish there was 5 of me, like to execute all the ideas I want to do. I always seem to I always force myself to stop doing 90 things, just do one thing and do it well. And then a month go by and I'm doing 5 things. So I don't know where I can find the time. I also think one thing I'm learning is I'm pretty idiosyncratic. So it seems to be overall when I do things kind of according to my little music world, things kind of work, but I'm not sure when I go on visits. I think also my flexibility was much in better shape when because I was in bands for 10 years. That's a long time. And then I really loved that, you know, just being part of like a 6 people, everybody throw ideas in a pot and let's do shit together, and working like that. And I feel like I've sort of paid my dues in those situations, but I don't know, never say never. You just never know. Yeah. I
think the world wishes there were 5 of you, but there can only be one. And another question that we have getting asked a lot, this one's from Nudie Knox, is are you working on a new album, or what new music are you working on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always kind of writing, but I'm really, really slow. So it always, like you've seen through the years, like that I put out an album every 3 years, or I mean, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, depending what else I'm doing. But I mean, so that average, that's like 1 song every 2 months. So it's I'm always lulling on something in the background. But I'm really careful that the first year or two, I don't really want to describe it or make it into a visual thing, or I just want it to be really, really like mysterious. And I try not to let the part of my brain, the more sort of analytical part of me, I try to like keep it away, to just sort of do it with my instinct and just do whatever the fuck I want. And then usually there's a moment where I finished the previous album, usually when like on the last tour or whatever, I usually will sit down and then I will listen to what I got, and usually it'll be a pleasant surprise, you know, like I'll be like, really? Like it'll be like usually the opposite of what I'm doing, because I'm kind of bored with what I'm doing, but in some ways a continuity of what I'm doing. So but so I mean I'm just started, so I'm still long way away. So
yeah. And just a final question then from us. Are you going to continue experimenting with VR, and will that translate in any way to your live shows or 360 sound at all?
Yeah, I mean, you could say that my shows are a continuity of VR, because I think that was sort of the reason why I went on this extreme journey into did an album that was very, like I call it, airy, like made out of flutes and very sort of virtual, if you want. Utopia for me was almost like virtual sounding, like it didn't have mud or bones or rocks and cliffs. It was very air. And then do the opposite in the execution. So the live show, it is basically based on some of the same programs we had to invent in 360 sound mastering from the VR that we discovered, and I'm working on it with some of the same team. So we ended up working, I set up in a lighthouse here in Iceland with 15 speakers in a circle, and I mixed, it took me 2 months, the cornucopia, the live sound. I placed a lot of the sounds that are kind of flying around you, and the flutes and the beats and the things. And we made programs that we can still play live, and then it will still make those particular movements. So very, so that is definitely, for me, doing VR album was very much like a journey into the underworld of virtual reality. But I also wanted to come out with goods that I could share in the real world with oxygen and shit, you know. So that's kind of why we kind of ended up in cornucopia with like 14 screens and 7-meter long organ pipes and 50-piece chorus and reverb chamber, which was done with an acoustician to kind of get a natural reverb on stage, so it's not artificial. So I think for me, cornucopia is basically a live version of VR. It's like a continuity, if that makes any sense. And for me, it's a good question. Am I going to continue to do VR? I think in my brain, it's 360. It's like, and that can be so many things. You know, that can be a gaming device, sitting in a church with a choir standing in circle around you. Being on a beach singing Stonemaker. It's I think I'm thinking more about it as 360, and not being stuck in the gadgets we had in the 70s, the vinyl, or the gadget we had in the 80s and 90s, the CD, and the aesthetic that came with that, but adapting with the gadgets we have in 2019, and try to make it effortless and natural, and hopefully I've got so far to go, and we all do, but we're going to do our best to try to make it green, you know, to have it solar powered, electric, run by electricity, to, you know, have a studio in the mountains, and maybe we can share live performances, and we don't have to go on airplanes around the world and destroy the oxygen for the planet. I mean, live tours, they take a lot of, there's a lot of pollution from all these airplanes. So yeah, I think we all need to think about the future in that way, and I would like to come up with solutions that can use our technology, but make the planet greener.
Yeah, it's definitely something for the music industry to be thinking about, and the perfect time to be asking these questions.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Björk. I think we're going to leave it there. So thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for your questions.
Can I use this, be an opportunist and use this to make one statement?
Absolutely, go ahead.
I would like to celebrate that Greta Thunberg is in New York. She made it on her on the boat, and I would like to encourage the Prime Minister of the Scandinavian countries to announce emergency situation in the Scandinavian countries and deal with global warming.
Amazing. Thank you for that, Björk. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Bye.
Thank you.